Okay, this past Shabbos, so Shabbos that blesses the month of Elul, and the month of Elul is the most pivotal month of the year because it's the month when we're able to correct whatever happened the past year, and able to prepare for the coming year, Abalim L'Teva. So this Shabbos, we read the Torah portion which begins with the words, "Look, I'm giving you today a blessing, giving this to you today." So that Tzemach Tzedek explained that the verse is not just talking about um, the choice that Hashem is presenting to us, that there's two paths in life: there's a good path, there's a negative path. Look, I'm giving you today a choice. You could choose this or choose that. But the Tzemach Tzedek explained that literally today a person could have the blessing of the world to come in this world, and they could have, God forbid, the opposite happen to them in this world. In other words, when you think good thoughts and you do good things, it's not just that Hashem rewards you in the future, but you bring the aura of Gan Eden, the aura of heaven, upon you in this world. By your good thoughts, your good words, your good actions, Hashem tells you, I'm giving you today a blessing. I'm giving you a blessing today of the future, of the higher world. That's what happens right now. A person transports themselves to be in the aura, or transports the aura of Gan Eden to come upon them in this world. I want to share with you a fascinating story of the Rebbe Rashab about this subject. The Rebbe Rashab was appointed to be the Gabbai, the one in charge of the Chevra Kadisha. The Chevra Kadisha is the burial society. The Rebbe Rashab was appointed to be the Gabbai, the one who administers all the undertakings of the burial society. And the custom in the City of Lubavitch was that when someone is appointed to this position, on Simchas Torah, they bring them from their home to the synagogue with a wedding canopy and with candles to celebrate their appointment. And then in the synagogue, the one who is appointed, he sponsors a kiddush. He sponsors a kiddush for everyone, especially for those members of the burial society, the ones who are actually doing the work of digging the graves. They're all invited to the special kiddush that the
Rabbi, we can't hear you.
okay.
Yes, now
Now you can hear me?
now we could hear you.
Menachem, can you hear me?
Yes, we hear you.
Okay, sorry about that. Okay. So Rebbe Rashab, he is leading this Farbrengen, and at the Farbrengen there was a very great inspiration. Rebbe Rashab shared then a discourse on the words, God doesn't play tricks with his creations. Whatever Hashem asks us to do, he empowers us with the ability to do it. There's nothing that Hashem asks us to do that we cannot do. If Hashem is asking us to do something, that means we have the ability to do it. So the content of that discourse, I believe, is the source of the previous Rebbe's final discourse, Bas Lagani, where he speaks about how a Jew does not want and cannot do a sin to separate himself from Hashem. A Jew doesn't want to separate himself from Hashem. A Jew can't separate himself from Hashem. That's a content of that discourse. And there was a great inspiration everyone had from this discourse. He said it in Yiddish, in a way that everyone could understand. But there was one gentleman there who was a relative of the Rebbe Rashab, and he he was a bit of a intellectual. He was called Avraham Moskver, Avraham from Moscow. He was greatly talented, and he had great knowledge in both the real parts of Torah, the inner dimension of Torah, but there was a worm that was eating him. In the expression of Hasidim, a worm was eating him means that he may have come to the synagogue 3 times a day to pray, he may have studied a lot of Torah, but that was only externally. Inside of himself, he was very frigid, he was very cold, and he used to say, Hasidus talks about how the mind needs to control the heart. Hasidus emphasizes how the mind controls the heart, and the whole purpose is that a person should be a mensch, just to be a regular person. Let your mind control your heart. That's the purpose. You should be relaxed and calm. And he didn't like any kind of inspiration. He didn't like any kind of excitement. He wanted everything to be just, relaxed, calm, and he was very against excitement. So when he saw that everyone in the synagogue was so excited, he saw that everyone was so inspired, so he was very upset about this. So he made a cynical remark to cool off the inspiration. What the remark is, the previous Rebbe didn't share, but he said some kind of disparaging remark. This about Avram, he was an avid reader of a news, any vestige of faith in Hashem, and he was an avid reader of this newspaper, Hashachar. So when he made this comment, the Rebbe Rashab turned to him and said this: Avram, you're making a mistake. You're making a very, very big mistake. You think that the main thing is that the mind should understand Chassidus. That's the main purpose. However, the Rebbe Rashab said, the main thing is not the mind. The main thing is that through the mind, a person should start to feel godliness until even the heel of his foot can feel godliness. The Rebbe Rashab said to him, I'm going to explain to you at length so you understand what I'm talking about. He started explaining the verse. It says in the Torah, Avraham listened to Hashem's voice. Because Avraham listened to Hashem's voice, God gave him all kinds of blessings. So that verse, which talks about Hashem instructing Avraham and Avraham listening to Hashem's voice, that verse is talking about Avraham overcoming challenges. How Avraham overcame all different challenges that he had. So Rebbe Rashab said, I want to tell you the difference between what Chassidus calls challenges, what Chassidus calls refinement. Refinement means you have a physical thing. With your mind, you could discern what the purpose of that physical thing is and use it for its intended divine purpose. However, he said, a challenge is in your feelings. A challenge means you have something in your feelings that's disturbing you. You have to work with yourself to overcome a challenge. And this ability to overcome a challenge is specifically found by simple people. Simple people have this ability to overcome their challenges with their simple faith in Hashem, and especially the Rebbe Rashab said, the Hasidic heel. The Hasidic heel means simple Hasidim. Simple Hasidim, although they are unlettered, they're not knowledgeable and ignorant, their simple faith allows them to accomplish a great deal. Rebbe Rashab said this. An intellectual, of someone who views Chassidus from an intellectual lens, and it's as if Chassidus is about understanding and processing intellectually, after 20 years of working hard intellectually, he will not be able to feel what a simple Hasidic heel can feel. The Rebbe Rashab said this: Chassidus is meant to come with service of Hashem. It's meant to impact our character. It's meant to infuse vitality in our mitzvahs, but understanding it without serving Hashem, God preserve us. Who knows where this can reach? Who knows how low a person can sink if you views Chassidus as a merely intellectual thing? He says you can end up in the lowest part of hell. The Alter Rebbe, with his sacrifice for Chassidus, he accomplished that even those simple Chassidim could have a feel, could have a strong feeling. And he said that what a intellectual Chassid, someone who views his Chassidus from an intellectual perspective, for his whole life, will never be able to accomplish what a simple Chassid could accomplish with Avas Yisrael, with the love of his fellow Jew, with love of his friends, what he could accomplish with a warm word, with a warm word, he could accomplish an intellectual cannot accomplish his whole life. Then the Rebbe Rashab said to this Avram, he says, Avram, I want you to admit the following. I want you to think about and admit the following. He said to Avram, he said, where were you yesterday? And where was I yesterday? What were your thoughts about yesterday? What were my thoughts about yesterday? What were your dreams about yesterday? And what were my dreams? When Avram heard this, he fainted. And when the Rebbe Rashab noticed that he fainted, he was just so overwhelmed. The Rebbe Rashab was speaking so strongly to him. The Rebbe Rashab said, it's worth it if something good comes as a result. When he came back to and he recovered from his faint, the Rebbe Rashab said, Avram, you need to return to Hashem. And return to Hashem like a simple person without philosophy. And he explained to this Avram what the Rebbe Rashab had said in the discourse again about simple faith in Hashem, and about how Hashem doesn't play tricks with us, and how a simple Jew does not want and cannot separate himself from Hashem. And he's talking to him about this. And they said to Avram, if you'll do tshuva, wonderful. But if you don't, a year from now, you said, I don't know. But in 2 years, you'll be already in the world of truth. Then he said to him directly, when the previous Rebbe repeated it, he repeated in the third person. He said, he'll be in the world of truth. But the Rebbe Rashab said, you will be in the world of truth. Then he said, actually, not the world of truth. I don't know if you'll be in the world of truth. In other words, he meant that there's as it says in that talk of the Rebbe Rashab, that there's a time that the soul has to endure in the downstairs in the psychotherapy of the opposite of heaven, before the soul can go to have the reward in Gan Eden. So Rebbe Rashab said, I don't know, when I say I'll be in the world of truth, I don't know if you actually be in the world of truth because of the time that's going to take for you to get there. But he said to him that he needs to treat like a simple person. If not, he said, a year from now, I don't know, but 2 years, you'll already be in the next world. So Avram was very excited and very present, and he responded, and he gave the Rebbe Rashab his word of honor that he will do this. So one of those present at this talk of the previous Rebbe asked the previous Rebbe what happened to him. So the previous Rebbe said that he did make this promise, but apparently he didn't keep it, because he traveled to America, and shortly after his arrival in America, his wife became a widow and his children became orphans. And although he had good intentions at the time, he wanted to do tshuva, but apparently his nature of always viewing things intellectually prevented him from having the simple kind of tshuva that Rebbe Rashab knew that he needed. The Rebbe Rashab continued and spoke about the name Avraham. The Rebbe Rashab said Avram, the Torah says about Avram that Avram was unique. Avram was one. The Rebbe Rashab explained the word one has 3 letters. Aleph means the master of the world, and 8, ches, is equal to 8, refers to the 7 mitzvahs that are given to Gentiles, and the mitzvah of circumcision. And Dalet is the 4 directions. And the Rebbe Rashab said that every single Jew is able to be like Avram and give light to the world, and to bring godliness to the world, and to feel godliness. Till Avram, said the Rebbe Rashab, the world was in a state of darkness. But Avram, Miherim Mizrach, he was the first one to bring light to the world. There were other tzaddikim before Avram, but the first one to bring light to the world was Avram Avinu. And then the Rebbe Rashab spoke about the verse, "From my flesh I could see Hashem." He pointed to his hand, and he said, although this is just a goylam, although this is just a simple, a human body is just a goylam, it's just a clod of earth, but this is the whole point of why the soul came to this world. When a Jew is involved in Avos Yisrael, he elevates his soul. On the other hand, when a Jew pats his fellow on the back, with love, he elevates his soul. On the other hand, when a Jew uses the hands of Esau and hurts someone, so then he causes his soul to go down, causes the soul to descend. The Rebbe Rashab said that although the body is just a simple clod of earth, nevertheless, when a Jew gives tzedakah, his physical body becomes a chariot for godliness. And the Rebbe Rashab said, don't think just that the body is just a physical thing. The essence of Hashem is the one who created the body, and Hashem gave all the Torah mitzvahs for the physical body. That was the content of the talk that Rashab gave then. And again, it highlights this idea of how even though a person's alive in this world, but they're able to, there's different ways of living. And Rebbe Rashab saw this guy, this individual who he was living with an intellectual approach to life, and he really was already in this world heading in the wrong direction, and therefore the Rashab wanted to lift him up to be a simple person, so he could merit to rescind the decree against him. I want to share with you another story about the Rebbe's father. Rebbe's father, Melaveh Yitzchak, once asked the legendary Chasser Mendel Futafas to bring a letter to the Rebbe Rashab. It was a letter that was written after Rebbe Rashab's passing, but he wanted him to give this letter to the Rebbe Rashab at his grave. He wanted him to read it at the grave. He also gave him a certain amount of rubles, and he explained to Mendel why he gave him this amount of rubles. He said that this amount of rubles is connected to a spiritual Kabbalistic meaning, and that's why she gave this amount. They should please read this letter for him by the Rebbe Rashab's cave. Mendel went on the train to Rostov, but on the train he hears that someone's looking for him. Where is Futafas? He got scared. Maybe it's a KGB. Who was it? It was Rebbe's father, Melaveh Yitzchak. He had realized that the Kabbalistic meaning of the amount of coins he gave him to charity did not fit his actual intent, for whatever reason that he discovered afterwards, and therefore he was wanting to give Mendel some more money in order that it should fit with the Kabbalistic purpose of why he gave him those funds. Reb Mendel said that a miracle happened on that trip. He went to Rostov, he read the letter of Melaveh Yitzchak, and as soon as he walked out of the Ohel of the Rebbe Rashab, as soon as they walked away from the burial place of the Rebbe Rashab, he suddenly forgot completely everything that Melaveh Yitzchak had written in that letter. Rabbi Yehuda Chitrek shared the following story. Again, shows about how a person is able to bring things from the next world into this world. Rabbi Chitrek shared the story. Rabbi Chitrek was a student in the yeshiva in Lubavitch. I merited to meet him many times. He lived well over 100. And he said that he heard the following story from Rabbi Shmuel Greinem Esterman, who was a Hasidic mentor in the city of Lubavitch. He said that in the city of Prague, there were these two wealthy people who both wanted to have to find a groom for their daughters. So they went to the yeshiva looking, they were both wealthy, and they both wanted to find a groom for their daughters. So one of them succeeded in getting a groom that was not only knowledgeable in Torah, but also someone who was Me'urav Mabriya, someone who was very friendly. And the other guy got some knowledgeable in Torah, but he wasn't so friendly. And the father-in-law, the friendly guy, was once the other guy was always very jealous of him. The father-in-law, the non-friendly guy, was always very jealous of the father-in-law, the friendly guy, the one who was Mu'urav Mabriyas. So, anyways, one day, this man comes into the synagogue where the friendly guy is studying Torah, and he says that he owes money to this landowner, this Paretz, for his rent. He has to pay 300 golden ruble, and and the guy's not giving him any time. He has to pay it immediately, and he doesn't know what to do. He has to pay him 300 golden ruble, and the Paretz not willing to wait. He could put him in jail. He could kill him. That's the way it was in those days. If you own some land, you're a Paretz, you own some land, people renting your estate, you could put them in the dungeon, you could kill them. And this Jew was very frightened. So he asked in the synagogue, it was clearly on his face that he was really distraught. So this young, friendly man went over to him and said, "What's wrong?" And the guy told him what's wrong. So this friendly guy was thinking, I need to borrow some money for this guy. I need to find money to borrow. So he goes over to the father-in-law of the not friendly guy, who was always jealous of him and jealous of his family. And he asked him for a loan. So this guy said, I can give you the loan. However, I want you to do something before I give you the loan. There's a condition for the loan. What's the condition? Condition is, he says, I happen to have this cloak of, it looks like the cloak of a priest. I want you to walk around the town and wear the cloak of the priest around the town, and just walk around, and everyone should see you wearing the cloak of the priest, and then I'll give you the money for this guy. I'll lend you the money. So this young man didn't think twice. He says, okay, no problem. You want me to wear the cloak? Want me to fool myself? No problem. Puts on the cloak. He walks around town, and everyone thinks he went out of his mind. Here is this young kolal in Raman. Here is this young man who's studying in a kolal, studying Torah. All of a sudden, he's dressed like a priest. What's this guy thinking? And the whole town was like wondering, but they saw he's like talking like a regular person. He didn't seem like he was crazy, but that made them think he's even more crazy. And he didn't live it down. It really like made, stained his name, but eventually people forgot about it. Years later, the this wealthy man gave this garment, this priest's garment, he sold it to a tailor, and the tailor saw it was made out of linen, and it would be good to be used for burial shrouds. So he told his family, when I pass away, I want you to take these burial shrouds and use them to bury me. So, of course, they took the burial shrouds. By the way, it's not a bad thing to make a decision now about the afterlife, because actually it's a blessing for long life is to write a will, to buy a burial plot. It's not considered a bad omen. On the contrary, it's considered a blessing for long life. Anyways, so he asked his family, please bury me in these burial shrouds when I pass away. After he passes away, he comes to the rabbi of Prague in a dream, and he says to him, I want you to know that this young man wore these clothing, the priest's clothing in order to protect another Jew, and because of this, he brought the holiness of Hashem into the garment, and because I'm buried in this garment, it protects me from the fires of hell. However, he said, I noticed that there was a part missing from the garment, and therefore I added a patch. And the patch that I added does not protect, doesn't have that same power. So I want you to please dig up my remains, and I want you to remove that patch from the shrouds. So that way I will be protected in heaven from the fires of from the negative stuff. So the rabbi did this. They actually did this. They dug up his remains and they removed that patch. And everyone in the city realized that crazy event when this young man was acting meshuggah, he wasn't actually acting meshuggah. He actually was acting very with sacrifice. So I want to share one final story about this power of bringing an aura, bringing a strength and an aura from a higher world. The Rebbe's birthday is 11th of Nisan. So the Rebbe's circumcision was on Pesach. The circumcision was in the synagogue of the Rebbe's grandfather, Rabbi Meir Shlomo Yanovsky. At this celebration, there was a man named Rabbi Osher Grossman, and he refused to eat anything at the circumcision because, as Hasidim are wont to do on Passover, they don't like eating from anyone else's home. And even though this was the rabbi's home, the rabbi of the city, he still felt like he should keep the custom of not eating in another person's home. But the rabbi was offended. However, the rabbi said, I can't get offended at you, Rabbi Asher, because I owe my life to you. And he told the assembly the following story. In those days in Soviet Russia, one of the biggest illnesses that there was no cure for was typhus. When someone got typhus, they were quarantined, and no one, and they had nothing to do for them. The people were quarantined, and there was a hospice, and that was it. So Meir Shlomo, the Rebbe's grandfather, Meir Shlomo Yanovsky, he got typhus, and he was quarantined. But Reb Usher, he went to the hospital, and he couldn't walk in. They didn't let anybody in there. But he screamed out from the yard next to the hospital, Meir Shlomo, I need to tell you something. What did he tell him? He recited every day the 11th letter of the Alter Rebbe in Tanya. The 11th letter of the Alter Rebbe speaks about how there's no evil that comes down from heaven. Whatever Hashem does is good, and absolutely good, and every detail of our lives is good. And the Alter Rebbe speaks about if someone is sad and upset, they are it's like a heretic. And the only reason the soul is in this world is in order to be tested, and a person thinks what's happening to him is bad and doesn't believe that Hashem is doing good to him. So the Alter Rebbe says over there how we have to be the first thing we have to be is completely happy, realizing that everything that's happening to us is absolutely goodness coming from Hashem Himself. It's coming, the Alter Rebbe says, not just from Gan Eden. Gan Eden is just the Garden of Eden. But there is Eden Shalmayim Elam Haba. There is a source of Gan Eden, which is called Eden. And this is the source of what any experience that any human being is going through comes from the source of goodness, the Mokar HaChayim VaHaTov. The source of life and goodness is what happens to every person, every moment from Hashem. And therefore, the Alter Rebbe says a person should never be upset. So Meir Shlomo said to this Chassid Abasher, he said, "You revived me." Every day he went to him, and miraculously, by him hearing that letter of the Alter Rebbe every day, he recovered from his illness. That's a story that Meir Shlomo shared then. Mendel Futafas, he shared that story with other Chassidim. An interesting postscript to the story. Mendel Futafas once shared the story with a young man, and he was telling this young man that the lesson from the story is how important it is to memorize Tanya, to always not just learn Tanya, but memorize Tanya. And that's what he shared. And the young man says, well, memorizing Tanya is medically effective, like saying chapter 119 of Psalms to cool off tea. But the young man meant, he was saying a joke. Psalm 119 is the longest psalm. It takes 10 minutes to say that psalm if you say it carefully. So he meant Psalm 119 is a spiritual remedy to cool off tea, is a joke, meaning it takes such a long time. So yeah, it's a spiritual remedy, it's a joke. Similarly, he said, say memorizing Tanya, what does it do? He was just saying a joke. And a Mendel would say a lot of jokes. He would use humor a lot in service of Hashem. But a Mendel did not like this joke. And a Mendel ripped into him. And he was telling him that jokes are this kind of joke. Scoffing is how negative it was. How scoffing comes from shalosh negative energy. And the point is that, as the Rebbe Rashab told this relative of his, Rav Avraham, Avraham from Moscow, that as the month of Elul approaches, you've got to be simple people with open hearts to Hashem. And this is the key to not just receive the blessing of Hashem in the future, but to live with something higher in ourselves right now. And as the Rebbe said very clearly, that we're in the last generation of the exile, we're in the generation of the coming Mashiach, and how Hashem announces through his prophets, through his servants, the prophets, that I'm giving you today a blessing. I'm giving you today the blessing of the true and complete Geula of Mashiach. It's happening. So by us living a little bit higher with as Rebbe Rashab said, by being simple and doing kindness to other person, how when you do this, you elevate your soul, not just in the future, but in this world, you elevate your soul. That's how we prepare for the goodness and the kindness of the coming Mashiach. Should see it happen immediately. A good davach Blake, good davach Rababa, good davach Yehuda, good davach of David, good davach Yonah, good davach Beryl, good davach Hayasara, good davach.